Let's do it. We'll start right now.
That was the start. That was the start of the episode.
It is January 2nd, so
Just me making fun of you right off the bat. It is January 2nd as we're recording this.
yeah. Happy New Year, bud.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you. What'd you get up to?
Thank you. A nice, relaxing sort of holiday. Back to work today, which was
Boo.
a shock to the system,
Mhm.
but I survived. You always start off, or I do. I tend to start off fresh for the new year. So I got a good walk in today and went to the gym, eating well.
Mhm.
Day one. It takes one day at a time. That's all it is. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to break it down to one decision at a time and make good ones along the way, and not think about I need to do this for a week or a month or a year or whatever. Just one decision at a time, making the right one for me. So I'll start
1%
off the
better?
day strong. Yeah. Yeah, whatever it may be. Going
It's funny
for
you
it.
say that. I brought this book out for reference for everybody watching on YouTube. I'm sure some people have read it. It's probably been a hot book for the year, but I'm about a third of the way through it. Atomic Habits.
Mhm.
One of the big premises is just, right on the book, tiny changes, remarkable results. The idea that, and we already, we know this and people who listen to the show, but it's fun diving into this topic of just getting 1% better at everything that you're passionate about each day, right? 1% healthier, 1% stronger, 1% better sleep, 1% better at photography, 1% better at video editing, 1% better at, committing to something. So I like right out of the bat, you talking about day by day, right? Not focusing
Yeah.
on, where we need to be next year.
Yeah, and you know what? The other part to that for me this year is there's hard work and there's pushing yourself, and there's also acceptance of where you are at in the journey, whatever the journey may be. And
What do you mean? Acceptance?
yeah, acceptance, not beating yourself up. So say decision by decision, I want to eat healthy every meal for 2024. Like that's my goal. I want to make good choices. Your food's your fuel. And I probably won't at times. There's times where I might not. But if, let's say on Wednesday, a day from now, I grab a cookie because it's out at the thing. I don't want to go like, well, you screwed up your goal for 2024, mail it in. Like, don't
Right.
even think about it again because you messed up. Like, you suck. Like, being hard on yourself. I think accepting, like, okay, well, that wasn't the best decision. My next decision, I want it to be good, and just
Yeah.
kind of giving acceptance to what it is, what happened, where you are, and move forward. I think that helps you in the long term of the goal, versus being really hard on yourself and being like, in a negative way, you screwed this up. Like, forget about it. You can't do it. You're a failure.
Right.
I'm exaggerating, but that's kind of the talk I think a lot of us have sometimes, that sort of critical voice that we have.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this recently because I've talked a lot about on this podcast about being rigid, right? And so I guess what you're talking about and what I'm trying to figure out is, what is consistency? Is consistency saying I'm going to eat healthy as possible, like I'm going to hit 100% on the health meter for the entire month?
Mhm.
If you miss one day, were you not consistent with what you set out to do? Or if you hit 25 of those 30 days, is that consistency? Like, what is consistency, I guess, is, and that's going to differ for everybody. I guess I've been thinking in my own head about what checks off the consistency box for me without going down a slippery slope, A, with letting things slide, and B, being so intense that it's just not enjoyable or achievable.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I also think it's an interesting point, because there's two camps to this growth journey for people. I was just talking about this with a good friend. There's the push yourself, and there's the David Goggins, like there's no limit. There's you can do better, you can do harder, you can put yourself in all these uncomfortable situations, you can persevere, you can basically kill yourself. Like, going for whatever it is you want to do. It doesn't even have to be physical stuff. It could be learning. It could be, everyone has that other gear that we rarely touch, myself included. Like, rarely touch the,
Mhm.
I'm going to work way harder than I want to work right now. I work hard. Like, that's my third gear, is working pretty hard for a lot of different reasons that, we all know. But how often do I get into that fifth gear? I don't know. Not that often, if I'm being completely honest. So that's one thing to strive for. But on the other hand, the other side of the coin is this sort of like I just mentioned, the sort of acceptance of, hey, you didn't feel great this week. That's
Mm.
okay. Like, that's all right. Like, what's the next move? And having that mindset, they're both dangerous if done too much. So it is this like balance, this yin and yang of both situations of, I want to work really hard, but I also want to be able to know when I didn't work my hardest, like, where's the grace there, or do I beat myself up? And in beating myself up, does that make me work harder? Does that make me hate myself? Does that make me slow down? Does that make me give up my goals? So I think just understanding those two facets of the whole growth journey is really important, and something I've been thinking about as well. Like, what's hard work? What is potentially working too hard and being distracted from other things that are important as well? Because life is a mix and a balance and everything. And into and kind of, I'm rambling here, but to put the hardest work I could to run my best time in a marathon or an ultra marathon. Uh, just as an example, I'm taking away time that I'm hanging out with my son.
Yeah.
Plain and
You
simple,
mentioned this
right?
before. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, where do you want to work and where do you want to give and where do you want to take? It all comes down to a little bit of a want. But I think being realistic with your goals and what you really want to do, and giving yourself grace when you slip up on those goals, is a virtue and a mindset that's really balanced and probably pretty healed if you can do both really well.
I think you brought up an interesting point as well when you said, I, w- you know, I work hard. I'm in fourth gear, let's say, because you
Hmm.
mentioned fifth gear being the next gear, right? So let's say you're in fourth gear, right? And you're improving every day. You're hitting those 1% improvements. You're either making more revenue with your camera, or you're increasing your 10-kilometer time, or whatever. I think maybe I'll pose this as a question. Is it fair to just sit in fourth gear and be like, great, I know I can do better, but I'm improving? Or and I'll preface this with saying, I'm more of the mind of, yeah, that's great, but I need to find something or a couple things where fifth gear is important to hit. Because then I feel like you get into, I'm not saying with everything, but definitely one or two things, because then can you can find the limit of your potential. And I feel like if you don't really discover that in something or some things, at least for myself, it can get kind of frustrating, and you may miss out on, that self-actualization type stage.
Yeah, I, I, I think it's a really interesting point, and I'm not sure there's an exact answer. And so to your point, like the 1% better, why not 2% better? Why not 3%? Why not 10% better? You could always indefinitely push yourself to strive more. I think that's to bring it to golf really quickly. I'm not got everyone relax. I'm not going to get into golf, but there's no perfect score, right? It's like some people
Right.
touch 58, so 57 every once in a while, every 10 years maybe. I don't know what the record in a tournament is, but it's around there. But I guarantee that person that shot a 58 for 18 holes is like, I missed that one putt. I could have been a 57, or I hit that one ball in the rough that made me shoot a par versus, like, there's always that I could have done more. I just wonder if there ever is an endpoint where it's like, I could not have done more. In you have to
Isn't
trade
that
off.
the point though?
Maybe it's an endless rat race. Like,
Isn't that the point if you're having fun though? Right? Like if that's stealing your joy, then that's counterproductive.
mhm,
But if constantly finding the ceiling is is fun, then that's part of it,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. No, I agree on that. It
Right.
just becomes like where are you taking away from to do all that other stuff? And if that's okay, then it's okay. And that's what you want to do and that's what you want to pursue. I just don't know if there's ever I did is even David Goggins. Like he's talking on a podcast. He's not working out at the moment, like
Mhm.
for 2.5 hours. Does he go to bed saying like, oh, that 2.5 hours I was sitting on my ass? You know, like I could have been doing push-ups, chin-ups. I could have been training. I could have been studying. He talks a lot about that, like studying and learning as like the next avenue in his life in terms of working really hard. Um, Dude's a paramedic. I didn't really realize that. Like that's what he does, and he wants to learn everything about medicine, and it's amazing. And the way he's studying for it sounds very much like the way he works out and runs and does all those things. So it's his wiring for sure. But yeah, I don't know that there's an answer to could you do the most possible where it's fun, not taking away from other things that you need to do as well. And be happy and be content with like this was the right balance of work versus other things. You have at some point you have to accept the work that you've done and that it was a lot. Could it have been more? Probably. Could it have been less? Probably. At some point, you have to accept, like, this was as hard as I could work or the best that I could do given the circumstances. I don't
Oh, you
know. It's
disappeared.
interesting. So, you sent me that, interview with David Goggins with,
Mhm.
in the Huberman Labs, and it's awesome. It's an awesome listen. It's one of my
I
favorite
haven't
things.
listened yet.
You gotta, and it's one of my favorite things to work out to. Honestly, it helps me get through it. It helps me push myself. Uh, David, and he admits that he's on one end of the spectrum. I mean, maybe the hardest working man on earth in that arena. Uh, is it for everyone? No, and he knows that. But nonetheless, you can get something from it. And that's his hope that he gets people to either it lights a fire, gets people motivated, whatever it may be. My, my,
Right.
my point is though, he's spending 2.5 hours, talking, sitting on his butt, as he would say. And is there a part of his brain that's like, wow, like what a waste of time? It's great that
Mm,
I'm talking, but I could have been running. I could have done that 10-mile run that I need to do, or that 20-mile run, or 100 push-ups, or writing my book, or studying for this, or studying for that. I'm just talking about things, which again has value. We're doing it right now, but for
right.
him, the point being is the brain having that sort of negative talk of like you could do more, you could do more, you could do more, or is there acceptance to it? Like this is part of my life now. I did it. I did my workout this morning. I did it extra, whatever it may be, or maybe I have to make this a rest day and work double hard tomorrow just to move the puzzle pieces around to make things work. I don't think there is an exact answer to can you always work as hard as you possibly can? And can you also always accept how hard you've worked? I think both can be dangerous, right? If you're always pushing yourself to fifth gear and you're going to lose out on other things. There's just no way about it. Like you're going to lose out on relationships or love or time with your children or vacations or seeing the world, whatever it may be. If you're always in fifth gear for something, and that's the extreme, and if you're always accepting where you are and saying like, oh well, this is my predicament. I have a son. I don't have time to work out. If you accept where you are, you're never going to get to that point of pushing yourself to see where you could get in maybe certain
Yeah.
things.
And then you
So I
miss
think
out on
there,
other things.
yeah, and you miss out on other things. So there is this weird push and pull and balance that, again, I'm not sure there's any right answer, but it's just interesting to think about where you are on that spectrum. Am I working way too hard and missing out on certain things of life? Is it maybe a distraction? Am I trying to prove something? Do I have a chip on my shoulder? Or am I a little bit too accepting with where I am in life and I'm just comfortable and I don't want to, whether it's fear of failure, whether it's fear of success, even, I don't want to push myself and see. I don't know. I don't know where everyone is. I have an idea of where I am on that spectrum, but I think it
Mhm.
is a spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I would agree with all that. I'll have to check out the episode.
For sure. It's him, you know, it's you know the characters for sure.
Mhm.
But it does get into things. It does talk about things in a deeper level. I think on this podcast, I think Andrew did a good job to try to get into some deeper thoughts
Mhm.
about David. We know his story. He's been on many podcasts, but trying to get
Right.
a little bit deeper.
Right. Okay, well, this is all good. Hopefully this little 15-minute, 20-minute chat has, maybe got some people thinking about what consistency is for them, um, where
Yeah.
maybe the right areas are to find fifth gear, you
Hmm.
know, some areas that are worth it, that we're passionate about. And also hopefully it's let some people know that rest in fourth and third gear, maybe even second gear when you're not feeling so great is part of it, right? It's
Hmm.
part of getting
Yep.
better. Um, so I really hope these last 15, 20 minutes just kind of get people thinking about what consistency means to them. Um, and yeah, picking something that allows them to really see where the ceiling is. I mean, I, we're going to get into, what we learned from 2023, and maybe this can be a segue point. And this may sound stupid to some people. You've seen the stories I post, the cold water stuff, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So December 31st was 365 days in a row of getting in nasty cold water. And some people
Wow.
are like, okay, that's stupid or whatever. Why'd you post it? Why do you always story it? Or put in negative comment X, right? And for me, it was about, and maybe I've said this on the show before, but I'll reiterate it. For me, it was about if I can do something every single day that isn't necessarily fun, that requires me to break through that friction of getting my swim shorts on or getting in the cold shower at 6 a.m. If I can do that every single day for 365 days of the year, where else am I holding back? Like, and it's a living experiment of how just getting up and doing something has long-term gratification. The long-term gratification here was saying I was able to do it, right? And seeing something through from start to finish that took forever in this in the short-term gratification world. Like a year is a long time, right? And I'm not here trying to pat myself on the back, but I just when I first started, I was like, there's no way you're gonna do this every single day. Right.
Yeah.
So having done it every single day, your head goes to, okay, like what else have I really not put a great amount of effort into, or what else is, what else can be a lot better? What else can have full commitment and what results will that bring?
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to look at it and a great way to assess the life, your life, anyone else's life that's out there, and decide. We get to this point often where it's like if you really want to, you do. Like it sounds so simple, but I think it's really true that if you really want to do something, even if it's tough, you do it. And if you don't, or you find reasons not to, then it's not going to happen. And there's many people with many excuses on why they can do things or why they can't do things, and that's all well and good. But if you really want to, you figure out a way, whether it takes
Mhm.
money or it takes extra time or waking up at 4 in the morning to get a workout in before the kids get up. Like If you want to do it, you figure it out. If you don't, you don't. So I think to your point is when you can be consistent with something really tough for 365 days straight, it helps you to realize, oh, I did that thing. I can go learn Italian if I want. I can do it every day for 365 days if that's what I want to do.
Right.
Right.
Right. It was a living experiment to prove to myself that sticking with something, even if it seems stupid or so far away, is worthwhile and meaningful. And now I have that personal experiment that I can use moving forward.
Yeah. And I think it's a great lesson. And I mean, this is poignant at January 2nd, 2024, the very beginning of the year, where people are talking about resolutions and what they want to do. And we all know the gym is really busy in January and then it fades out.
Good.
It's just the way it goes. But if you really can reflect and say, like, I want this for this year, whether it's, I want 10 photography gigs. I had none last year. I want 10. You can go make it happen. I think we're going to get into like 2023 learning experiences and recap. And there's some big ones for me in terms of the hard work and what happens when you put in the hard work and what happens when you don't. And it was very eye-opening between 2022 and 2023, and some experiences through other people and seeing what they're doing and the fruits of their labor, if you will, seeing how seemingly easy it comes if you put in the work, like plain and simple.
Yeah, and to your point about the gym's packed in January and then not so much in February, just as an easy visual showcase of what happens. Huge takeaway from that book I showed earlier. Again, I'm only on it my first read through, but a huge takeaway immediately was that a lot of people, and I'm sure I've fallen victim to this before, when your goal doesn't get met, it's because you didn't adopt the identity. Like, looking at the majority of us, like all of us, have looked at accomplishing something backwards. And what I mean by that, and what James Clear, the author, talks about, is you need to adopt the identity. Like, you need to believe I am an athlete, and that gets you to the gym, or I am a professional photographer, and that gets you outside in the field. It's like Jad was saying, remember that episode with him? As soon as you take a photo of a squirrel, I am a wildlife photographer. Like, adopting the identity. What would a healthy person do? What would a professional photographer do? What would a good, what would a good father do? Right? Depending on what your goals are. Like, thinking about what that ideal person, what that identity, how that would act. So sort of in like a backwards thought process, as opposed to, I want to run every day, and not adopting the thought process of, I'm a committed person. I'm a runner.
Yeah, it becomes when it's worked best for me is when it's almost like there's no negotiation. It becomes, this is a part of my day at this time, and this is where I'm going to focus and put in the most work towards this thing. Whether it's, I adopted not a brand new, and that's a weird way to say a dog, but I adopted a dog. Brand new, smells like a new dog. Late model 2023.
5-year warranty.
Yeah. That's funny. But with that, if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to adopt a husky, comes with their highly energetic breed. They can, when they're sled dogs, they can run up to 100 miles a day, 150 miles a day at times. Like, that's an enormous amount of energy that can be spent. That's not realistic. I'm not doing that every day. However, when signing on to this, I said to myself, okay, if I'm doing this, it's not staying inside all day. Like, I have to get out and walk with this dog, hike, run, bike, whatever it may be, every single day. And now it's not a negotiation. It's not a like, oh, I should work out. It's like, no, this is part of my day. becomes much easier to come home, have a quick snack, be like, oh, I have an hour and a half of daylight. I need to get outside right now. Like we have to go get 2 in. That's what we can go get. Fine, we're doing it. There's no like, oh, it's just 2. It's like, no, I have to go get that 2. If it's
Right.
a workout thing, like it's just part of, what I get home at 3. I'm going to work out. I'm still home before 5 o'clock, and it's part of my day. It's part of my work day. I'm just chalking it into like, this is part of life now. It doesn't even become a negotiation. And I might have good workouts and bad workouts, and ones where I'm motivated and ones where I'm not, but I'm there. I'm there every single day doing it.
And it goes to, using your dog example, it needs the exercise. In your head, maybe you've adopted the mindset of, I'm a responsible person, or I'm a dog. I am a dog owner, right?
Yeah.
I am an active person in order to perpetuate those habits day in and day out.
Yeah. And exercise is the easy model, but photography, I want more clients. Okay. How many did you email today? Just straight up question. How many,
Yeah.
like, what did you do? Is your number 10 a day? Is your number 1 a day? Whatever it may be, if you create a sort of pattern that is just part of your day. Hey, on my lunch break, I'm going to fire off 2 emails every single day. If you do that every single day and make it just part of the thing of your life, the schedule of your life, I guarantee things will happen. And then you could at least assess after 2 weeks, a month, hey, I did 2 a day and I got 2 gigs the whole month out of doing 2 a day. What if I did 4 a day? Now, might I get 4 gigs this month because I doubled up my output? Is it exponential? Is it a just, complete correlation between the numbers? Because now I can scale it. So consistency, like you did with the cold plunges and the cold water, gives you at least a model too of like, oh, I was able to do this every single day, one time for this amount of period of time. Okay, that's good to know that I can do that.
Right.
Why not other things?
What else? What else?
What can I add? What can I replace? What can I scale? If it's something that's scalable, then yes, absolutely.
Right.
So
I just needed a case study for myself. I needed a case study that says you are capable of seeing something through every single day, and then taking that model and running with it. That's really what I want people to get from that silly sounding experiment.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so do you want to get into some lessons learned?
Yeah, let's we've been very conceptual, and that's great. Let's get into some of the 2023 lessons learned.
Also, we just started firing. This is the Photographer Mindset. I'm your co-host, Aaron Manis.
For all the people who have maybe found the show in the new year.
Yeah, and we just got into it.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's okay. I'm Seth Macy. I'm the other co-host. We're both wildlife photographers. We do a lot of commercial stuff as well. Aaron and I have become good friends over the year. I started the show, of course, in 2020 during the pandemic by myself, and had Aaron on as a guest once, twice. Can't really remember. It's been so long ago.
Twice, yeah.
He was so awesome to have on that I think in 2021 of June, I reached out and said, hey, buddy, need you. You want to be a part of the show? And here we are. I think 197, 98. We're coming up on 200, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
I've probably said that the last 10 episodes, but that's okay. And, again, we're here every week, whether we have energy, whether we're, low enthusiastic, high enthusiasm, we got to find a way to, we don't have to, but we choose to because we enjoy it. And we feel it adds to the community, right? Doing episodes every week, right? And
yeah, that's a great point too. Sorry to jump in, but yeah, every single week, for as long as Seth has done this and as long as I've jumped in, there are sick days. There's bouts of COVID. There's obligations, family stuff, family members sick, things you'd rather be doing, but we always say like we schedule and it just becomes part of the week. At this point, it's part of the week. whether it's one time or a couple of recordings that we're doing to get ahead of the game. We're figuring it out, and it's just a part of the week. It's not as painful when it's just something that has to happen, and you make that mindset of like, this has to happen, because if it doesn't, then what? Then it crumbles, in a sense. I mean, being dramatic, but it does. Like the weekly episodes crumble if you don't do it. They go away, and then our promise is gone, and we lose listeners or whatever it may be. We have failed to ourselves with our goal. So it becomes a schedule. And if Seth goes away, if I go away for a week at a time, we say like, all right, this is a problem, but it doesn't mean we just skip the week. It doesn't mean we mail it in. It means let's record twice in a row.
Sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm being terribly honest. Like sometimes I don't want to be here. Very rarely, but sometimes there's like
tonight we were close to pull the plug. I mean, if we're being really honest, like
tech issues are the bane of my existence. And when I say I don't want to be here, I don't want that taken out of context. I always want to show up for you, for everybody who listens, and for myself. But as we know, sometimes you're just not feeling the things you love on certain days, right? And I think things you really do love, that's part of it. And you just continue. And with that, so that's the show. Hello to everybody who's new, and hello to everybody who is sort of new, and hello to everybody who's been here for a long time. We hope that we can continue to put out, useful episodes as the photography, videography creator space evolves, and hopefully we can continue in our niche of tying a healthy headspace into that field of artistry. And if there's any way, if people write all the time in the Q&A section on Spotify and DMs, if there's ever a way to make the show better, please let us know. We love talking to each other. We love talking to guests, but we're here to add value and a service to a community. And I try to remind myself that all the time. So please do that. And with that, let's talk about some 2023 lessons.
Yes. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. 2023 lessons. There are a couple things that I've observed and noticed and am taking with me into 2024. Where to even begin? 2022. Now, let me back up even more.
Ooh.
Just this whole photography journey for me has been a whirlwind because it's relatively new. Right before COVID happened, we all know the story. That's when I picked up a camera. Maybe we don't all know the story. So here it is. Picked up a camera right before COVID. COVID happened. It happened at the exact moment where you have that fifth gear in a new passion and a new hobby. And now I'm coupled with a ton of time and home from work and kind of just waiting this out, not knowing when things would go back to normal, but was able to dive in and get out into nature and really explore a passion without the distraction. I'm calling it a distraction of like waking up and having to go to work for 8 hours and missing out on that time block where you could be studying something that you love. Now, fast forward, met a ton of great people. We create all these little niches and cliques and things, and we're trying a bunch of stuff. Remember, like the National Photo League and these outings and doing all these things. Shutter Team 6, which is still a thing. Mike Nuge, Brett, Adam, you, we're all trying to do these things and figure out like where it sticks. The podcast starts to happen. I join it. Just your attention pivots and changes throughout all this thing. Now, Shutter Team 6, some of the product stuff I did in 2022 was really cool. Without getting into too many details, but I had some big companies and we did some things. Seth helped with a few shoots. Mike Nucciarino and I did a bunch of stuff early in the year. We had a really promising financial year in terms of like, hey, we put in a little bit of effort, but this came pretty easily and we did a lot of stuff. 2023 came around and Seth and I work our butts off on the podcast. Mike started doing a lot of stuff with Goose, which was awesome. That's another part of this whole story. But the product stuff sort of dried up, and that's okay because my attention wasn't trying to get that. It was in other ways, looking
Mhm.
at other things. But what hit me was, oh, if you don't put in the work, if you don't put in the reach outs and the calling and the asking for things, it doesn't just happen. That has to be a part of it. I also saw Mike Neutrino working so hard to make a name for himself with Goose, and he's been on the show. That's a really cool episode to listen to
Mhm.
from probably about a year ago at this point.
Mhm.
But I watched how hard he worked and how it was paying off for him personally. That was a very interesting lesson. I watched how hard Seth works and the podcast and the graphics, the design, where we're growing with it, what we're doing, our ad sales, YouTube recently, retreats, all the work that's put into that and what can come of it. Awesome lesson. And as I was getting through 2023 and I started to realize, like, wow, there weren't any of those big product things. I was like, that's okay. But I had this last lesson, and a shout out to Taryn, who does helps us out as well with some of our video stuff. She's awesome. I work with her in the school. But what I saw was she was a new photographer that went on our trip to
Mhm.
Banff and Jasper, and she got a curious bug on, like, hey, you do cabin shoots? Like, how's that work? And I basically gave her a quick rundown. And what I saw was she went on Airbnb and maybe message or DM people on Instagram as well, but messaged all these Airbnbs, hundreds of them. Hey, can I don't have much experience, but here's what I'm willing to try. Here's what I'm willing to do. And she got so many cabin shoots
Mhm.
from that. She got
Amazing.
a lot of no thank yous, but this is someone that doesn't have a ton of photography background, that just has drive and passion and hard work, and it started to pay off. And it gave me this sort of like, it was a great reminder going to the end of 2023 that if you put in work and if you take the time to do something and you have some skill to back it up, and you have a personality and all the things that we talk about, good things can happen. If you sit back and relax, it passes you by. Period. End of lesson.
And do you think you hadn't fully realized well, do you think you've fully realized that lesson? Or do you feel like in at the start of 2023 you didn't have that lesson kinda down?
No, I think that's a good question. I think I had it down.
But it was a reminder?
I had to cough there. I muted it, so it's not muted in the camera. But I didn't want you to think you lost me. Uh, no, it was just a really good reminder, like a clear reminder of, like, hey, buddy, like, what do you want to accomplish for 2024? Figure that out, and then do the work to it. Like, then it'll be fine. Then it'll be good. You'll be good to go. Do you
Right,
want some
there's a
product
sense of
shoots? Then
relief.
go. What's that?
It's a sense of relief where you can go, "All I have to do
Yeah.
is go after it. I don't need anything else."
You really do, and I think it's a
You know what I
good
mean?
I think it's a really good lesson for anyone out there that's, like, new or says the things that, I don't know why it's not part of Taryn's vocabulary or her brain, but it's not, and good for her. It's like, "Oh, I've never shot at Airbnb before. Like, why would they choose me? Oh, I'm new at photography. I just started an Instagram. I only have 9 posts. Why would they choose me?" And they
Right.
do, and they did, and paid. Like,
Mhm.
paid also. Because she was
Yep.
willing to ask and willing to, like, negotiate and have fair conversations. Like, I think it's a really, really good lesson to everyone out there that, like, you you can get a lot of things if you ask. If you don't,
Mhm.
if you don't, it's nothing. And that if that means you have to ask 100 Airbnbs to shoot one, okay. Is it worth it? Is it
Mhm.
worth like the free weekend to get paid to shoot an Airbnb? Was it worth sending out 100 messages?
Right.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
even 1 out of 100, that's not necessarily efficient, but you'll get better. And then it'll be
Yeah,
4 out of 10. Then it'll be 10 out of 10. Then it'll be 11. Then it'll be so hard to get 12 out of 100. Sorry, out of 100, which is what I should have been saying.
mhm.
Um, and it speaks to that mentality we've talked about before, the why not me mentality. I love that. It's my favorite, headspace to be in. Why not me? People on Instagram aren't any different than me. People who are in, spots I want to be in, they're no different than me. They got there somehow. Weren't born with
Yeah,
the ability to get there, you know?
absolutely.
And
So
so
that's my big lesson from 2023.
and so how does that translate
Maybe
into
not a lesson, but
2024?
okay. So I think in what we're doing, it translates in terms of, hey, this is a big deal to us. Obviously, like we put a lot of pride into it. It's our baby, um, and as you go forward, to be organized and not like disorganized, I think is a key thing. There's a lot of avenues you can take photography. There just is, and content creation and videography. And there's a lot of passion projects that you get like sidetracked with. There's a lot of things, a lot of flashing lights. I think going forward, to me, it was like a couple of things. One, where do I want to put the priority of my available time into? And two, if there is something I want to do, it's not just going to happen. Like I need to put in a little bit of the work, put in a little bit of the messaging, put in if there's something I want to do come 2024 fall. If I know fall's coming up and I want 2 to 3 cabin shoots for fall, I need to start thinking about that now a little bit and getting those things secured and put in the work now. It's not ideal to want to do something in the fall when it becomes fall because everyone else has already made those plans.
Right.
So just having some moments where there's some clarity of like, hey, what went well in 2023? Is there anything else I'd like to do or try to do? Is there anywhere I want to visit? Is there anything I want to see? Is there any product that I want to shoot? Do I want to get into food photography a little bit? Do I want to get into some more Airbnbs? Is that getting a little bit of a hassle? Do I not want to do that? Just whatever the questions may be that you have to answer, I think 2023 has reminded me to, that was just a whirlwind, to slow down, to speed up. And when you want to speed up, put in the work and get it situated. And with that work, I feel like good things happen. I've seen it just all around me with you, with Mike, with Taryn. Those are my 3 examples of people that put in a lot of hard work and then things start happening. And I'll even say myself.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you should.
that was the lesson of 2023. The reminder at the end that reaching out and asking is really nothing beats that, and hard work really pays off. Very cliche, but maybe for a reason.
Were there any really crummy moments or like, wow, I really blew that?
Over the year,
Mhm.
ooh, that's a good question. Do you have any? While I'm thinking about one.
Well, I'll let you think and I'll kind of talk about what you were talking about. I think one of my lessons from the year, I alluded to this earlier in the episode that I'm very rigid and very hard on myself. And I think that doesn't serve me well at times.
Mhm.
I think I need to get to a place where not being 100% consistent in a week doesn't frustrate me, doesn't doesn't encroach on my joy, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
does.
I don't know if because I'm in my own head doing an own eternal assessment. You know me from the perspective of you knowing me, I know myself from inside my own head. And sometimes, it's another thing that I want to focus more on is finding a way to step outside of my own head and be better at looking back over the course of a month, over the course of 3 months, over the course of the year, and saying, damn, like you did do a ton of shit. Like you're way further ahead than you were. Because when you're in the podcast day by day, or you're in videography or photography day by day, it's tough to see the improvements. It's tough to see that you're making headway, especially when you're super hard on yourself and you're your own biggest critic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's maybe why we make a good team is I don't think you're the hardest on yourself that I've ever seen, but maybe you're that end of the spectrum. And I think on the other end, I could be a little complacent potentially, or relaxed or calm if you want to frame it in a nice way of like, what can you do? We had a bad week, like what are we gonna do next week?
Right.
Like that kind of mindset is all
right.
Is all that you can do in my head.
And it doesn't keep me from wanting to move forward. And I'm glad, when I'm not 100% consistent, but it lights a fire under me most of the time in a good way, but sometimes it's like, be fucking better,
Yeah.
And that's not always what I need, even though it gives results.
Yeah. It can for sure. I think also like,
well, for me it does, but it's not necessarily the type of spark I want.
Yeah. You ever listen to Kobe Bryant's interviews?
Probably the last time I would have heard one of those was ESPN as a kid.
Yeah. Look up everyone. Look up some of his like philosophical interviews. Kobe Bryant being philosophical and just how he approached the game. He was just very blunt about wins and losses is the result. I'm concerned with like the process and how I performed and the team performed and what we need to do. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You got to keep moving. You got to adjust the process if you need to. He just had like this super calm approach to the game. He was very detached from it and was one of the best players ever. Was able to still perform and do really well and get all the accolades, but none of that really mattered. It was the love of the game and the process and that's what counted to him. So look up some of that stuff. But I hear you. I think again, there's a balance with everything. Some of that push and that drive and the you suck can create focus and create drive and create working really hard for periods of time because you want to prove something. It can also create, in the bad sense, not in you necessarily, but it can create tension. It can create unneeded pressure. And especially in sports, pressure and tension don't usually translate to good things.
Right.
Go on. Sorry.
I think as well, I'm getting better at this. And this kind of speaks on this topic that I want to really start focusing on changing verbiage from not good enough to better than before. Like if I'm saying something's not good enough, that may be true in the sense of where I want it to be at in terms of quality or performance. But then immediately afterwards saying, but it's better than before.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
And being aware of that, right? Like making it an effort to have better than before come after not good enough. If that, because not good enough for me, that's motivating. Like this can look a lot better, but it's better than it looked last week.
Yeah.
really, really living that.
Yeah. You keep growing, you keep changing, you keep adjusting. I think that, like, I mean, a current example of that is the YouTube clips,
Right.
right? Where it's like, hey, we're this, so it's a good amount of work. We're transferring huge files, we're syncing things up with professionally done audio. It's all different people putting it all together and making it happen. And
Well, and you
it's
and I are trying to, we have a mic personality, but now there's another element, right? You
right.
have a camera pointing at you. Don't pick your nose. Don't look stupid. Don't touch your mic a million
Yeah.
times.
I
Right?
have to have my hands handcuffed behind. I sit on my hands. I have to sit on my hands.
Right.
No, but absolutely, and design, like, you create a video. Anyone that's worked with video, the design options and ways you can go with it is endless.
Mhm.
And we've had really, I feel like, really productive and nice conversations about, like, hey, you know, great go, great start. Why don't we do this down the road or next time? Where it becomes like, yeah, let's grow it. It is what it is right now. Let's grow it into a place. Not, we could have spent on that first one, the first one we sent out of our live podcast, we could have spent 100 hours
Hours.
going
Uh-huh.
back and forth and being like, I don't like that title, I don't like the text, I don't like this. One of my lessons for 2024 is I want to try to really remove as many lateral moves as possible. And what I mean by lateral moves is, like, let's change that font color, where it's like, oh, okay, is that going to change anything, like, right
Is
now?
it
And
worth
that's
the
a
time? Yeah. Is it
is
worth the
yeah,
time that we're talking about this? Or can we
right.
come back to it? Right.
And that was just a quick example, but, like,
Mhm.
let's move that font to the middle third, and you're like, okay, like, is that going to get us more followers, more, like, watching time? Is
Oh,
there
good
a
point.
return
Does
on
it
investment?
Yeah, does that play a factor in mission objective?
Right, right.
Does that play a factor in mission objective? And if not, because I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I think we have a
That's
similar
great.
goal. I think we have a similar
Great
goal, and
question.
because um, one of my lessons, or maybe it's not even a lesson, but it's a moving forward in 2024. Move fast. Like,
Mhm.
if the finished product has some cracks and needs some duct tape and stuff, it still holds the water, right?
Yeah.
Move
Yep.
quick. We'll come back and we'll plug up the holes. That's
Yeah,
so
and
speaking exactly to what you are. That's something I really want to hone in on this year.
I love that question that you just posed. Like, does it serve the mission's objective? I think that's what you said. We can
Mhm.
play that back, but yeah, I think that's really important to ask. Is this a video for Patagonia, or is this a social media thing that's going to be gone in 24 hours? Because
Mhm.
why are we splitting hairs over font
Right.
size when
Right.
it does not matter and won't matter in 24 hours?
Right. And if
You
mission
know,
objective is to entertain somebody for 10 seconds, font doesn't play a big factor into that.
right,
So
and that's
pick
just an
something.
example. Pick something
Right.
and go. You
And
go,
you know
move,
what's
move.
funny? I remember you were, maybe you're still thinking about this. I said, have you had any really negative or, oh, I blew that moments? And
Mm,
what really got me thinking about this, does this pertain to mission objective thing, was with, Rich, who we've been doing work for, right?
mhm.
We've been helping him. You've been doing photos for his basketball company. I've been doing web design, designing PDFs, all that fun stuff. And I think it's okay to tell the story. I presented a web design for Rich, and he chewed me out. I got my ass handed to me.
Mhm.
And basically, and you know what? He was absolutely right. He was right. And basically, what it came down to is you gave me a product that didn't serve mission objective. And I was
Yeah.
like, you're right. I tried to over deliver, right, with features you didn't ask for,
Mhm.
and got too fancy with it, trying to impress. And I veered away from mission objective. And that was his exact verbiage. And it got me thinking, okay, like this, that should always be in your mind, is what is the mission that we're trying to accomplish? And that was because I got chewed
Yeah.
out. And it sucked for the day. Nobody likes that. But
No, but it's big of you to tell the story and admit it and own it. So,
like, what do?
mm,
You take it on the chin. Kind of
mhm.
annoying day. Um, but we move on, and we still do. I still do work for him.
Yeah,
Right. What else can you say other than thanks for the feedback? If he hadn't given me that feedback, right? Brutally honest
mhm,
feedback, I'd continue to make that mistake.
right. He taught you a very good lesson
Right.
and something that you're gonna carry into 2024 with,
That's what I'm
and
saying.
it spills into all avenues, your own personal stuff, your own, who knows? Maybe you're
Well, we're
you're
talking about
grocery
it here.
shopping. You're fine, like, yeah, you're all over. It could spill into like, what's the objective? To go get healthy food? Do I need these snacks? Do I have to go down the snack aisle? Do I need, like, no, like,
Right.
just, it's like, what's the objective for what we're trying to do? Let's do it as efficiently and as
And
well as we
fast.
can, but not. We don't need to go overboard. Maybe that's not the objective right now.
Right.
And I think that's a great lesson for sure.
And I've used it since then. And I was so annoyed that day. I was like, man, I'm not as good as a designer as I thought. And, I always thought that over delivering was the better thing to do. And, it kind of flipped me upside down.
Mhm.
But I think it also speaks to another point of being just brutally direct with people. You save a lot of
Yeah,
time, and he saved a lot of money because I'm
yeah,
charging
that's
per
true.
hour. He
Mhm.
saved his business a ton of time by going, cut that out. Never again.
Yeah,
And I said, yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah,
But
yeah,
now
yeah.
I can take that lesson moving forward, as you just said, for other things. What's the mission objective? Is the mission objective losing weight? Okay, I'm going to have a salad for lunch. Is the mission
Yeah,
objective to get a ton of followers on my Instagram page? All right, I'm just going to create viral content. What else?
that's right.
Screw everything else. Right.
Screw it. Screw it.
So,
Yeah. So, to answer the question, the maybe mistakes or big mess ups
yeah,
of 2023, and then I
because we're
think we're
far from
good. We
perfect
can.
on this show. We are.
Oh, please. We are not experts. This is our experience. We are learning through our mistakes and sharing them.
Right.
So we're not experts. Uh, I, for the last time, will do work without money down. I'll say maybe sometimes not a contract, but I
Mm,
am collecting 50%, and
before you do anything.
I'm not doing
Mhm.
a thing. I'm not being pressured by time or we need this fast. I am collecting money or I'm not lifting a finger. And that's happened because
Regardless
of
of scope?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Some sort of, I mean, if it's a small scope thing, then some sort of just contract then in lieu of money. But if it's bigger things, I want 50%. I want
Can you
50%
share a bit
down.
more about why? Like
Because
something
when
that's
you don't
useful for
do
somebody
that,
listening, somebody saying why? Why is that a big deal?
I did a project. sh- There's a, I'm going to botch this up, but if you want something fast and good, it's very expensive. If you want something good but takes a long time, it's average priced. If you want something not so good and fast, it's not so expensive. And you want something not so good and takes a long time, it's really not expensive, or shouldn't it be?
Mhm.
So this well-to-do company, they're doing great. They have plenty of money. Wanted some content for Halloween. Gave us 4 days, myself and Nooch, to do some content for them around the Halloween time. And there's not a lot of time to do it. We had to plan. We had to get props. We had to do things. Uh, we did the content, and now we'll get there. I feel like, but no monies have been exchanged. They used the content for Halloween, but no
Oof,
monies have been exchanged since then. We're 2 months at this point, a little bit more than 2 months later.
that's too
Now there's
long.
contact. They're not ghosting, but it's all like, oh, it's at payroll. Send the invoice again. It's just this back and forth thing, and it just goes to show, like, hey, if you want something fast and good, like, it's 2024 now. Like there's ways to transfer money, wire money. It could be instantaneous if we wanted it to be. We don't need to drag our feet. So it's just one of those things where it's like, hopefully it ends well, and I think it will, but it's taking a long time and it shouldn't. It's putting us out. It's making us do a lot more work, like checking in, emailing, feeling naggy. It's not a good feeling. Getting strong, like, okay, I have to make a strong email now. That's not fun,
No.
you know?
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, this is going to happen up front.
Right.
At the very least, a signed contract, just so it's like it's more official. It's less trusting that everything's going to just go perfectly smoothly, which usually it does, and that's why I fall into the trap of trusting, and then it goes sour, and you're like, oh, this is annoying. So that's number one. That was the big one, and then
Mhm.
my last one is just I think prioritizing and refocusing. And I feel like a good place. I'm in a good place. This is the second half of year 4 of photography.
Mhm.
If I'm doing that math right, yes, I am. And I tried a lot of things. Now let's start to hone in on like, how do you want to spend your year in completion with like these big events and our retreats and our podcast, and how many cabin shoots do you want to do ideally? Do you want to dabble in product photography? Like whatever it is, want to not be just sort of a potpourri or miscellaneous, and nothing happens or little things happen here and there. I want it to be a little bit more planned. I think my biggest mistake of 2023 was sort of just winging it a lot, short term. Like, oh, hey,
Mhm.
it's fall. Can I do some fall shoots? And I got lucky. But not planning out as much as I possibly could have. Actually, I take that back because I said that wrong. Fall was the one thing I did plan for, and it worked out very well. I had
Mm.
2 getaways in fall during peak season. That's what I wanted to do, and I planned that way earlier in the summer or even end winter of 2023, and that's what really worked. But all the other time, summer didn't really work out. Winter,
Right.
you know, here and there, that sort of thing. So you guys get my point, but those were the lessons, those were the mistakes. That's what I'm going to try to improve on for 2024.
I like it.
Period.
Good for you.
Thanks, bud.
Good for you. And then I think, from a more techie standpoint, I'm like I've said it before in the latter half of this year. Videos.
Video.
Video. I've I've I'm finding it tough to push the creative, to scratch the creative itch with stills.
I
You
hear
know,
you.
I used to get really excited going into Lightroom, and I still do, but it's so routine. I know my workflow. I know my look. I know my style. I need something new to dig into. Ooh, color grading. What's this? Color correction. What's the best way to do this?
Yeah.
How do I tell this
It
story with
is
moving
fun.
parts? It's to the
It is
point where
fun.
I'm like, I'm I'm my next camera is gonna likely, we'll see if this ages well, be a cinema camera
Yeah.
and not a hybrid.
I understand. I mean, it's the way it's going, and it is very fun. Um, it's fun being creative.
Mhm.
I had a little. I'm not going to be like Ian and talk about my reels, but
You had a good one.
it doesn't matter. That's not what I want to talk about. I don't. What I want to talk about is I had a creative burst over break, and I just
Okay.
went out and I had this idea, and you couldn't capture it with stills. This
No.
idea I just had was like, oh, I'm gonna kind of make fun of myself and wildlife photographers. I'm gonna do a couple different things, and filmed all this stuff in one day and put it together. And I also found like, oh, this is a good way to joke and tell a story, but also share my photography because in the video, I'm sharing a photo that I like. So I was like, this really satisfies a lot right now, because here's a photo I liked from present or past, and here's a narrative, and I get to color grade it and make it look cool and badass and add music. And it's fun. It really is fun. And it got good attention in terms of like people enjoyed it. People really reached out. I could do a photo I'm really proud of, and these days it's just like, I don't know, man. It's not what's hitting. People aren't crazy about it. Might get a couple comments from good friends and fans, but to see a video with like a good narrative kind of go and be passed along, and like, that was funny, that was good, that was great. That was kind of a nice feeling in terms of that creative content award.
I like that on one of your reels, I guess the one that went viral. I wrote, "Get this guy off Instagram." And you know how I knew your reel went viral before I even went back to check the plays, because I was getting comments in my notifications defending you for me saying, "Get this guy off Instagram." Because like people didn't realize that like you and I are buddies.
Yeah.
It's like, no, he's right where he belongs, and like other stuff along those lines. I was like, oh,
we need more of it.
Oh no! Yeah, we need more. You know what I'm talking? Yeah, we need more of him. This type on Instagram. I was like, I just want to be like, relax,
relax. He's all right. Jeez.
Oh, I was like,
I got the best, Seth. I got the best comment today ever, because with virality comes the trolls, or the people that don't get it. And so one of my things was, right, like I could have clearly stepped over this log, and the joke was like, we have to show how hard the hike was. So I climbed under this log where you could clearly step over it. It was a small joke, but someone wrote, and I don't know if they're trolling me or they're dead serious. They go, I don't understand why you wouldn't just walk right over this log. You clearly put your camera on the ground, which by the way is very expensive, and I wouldn't put a camera on a wet ground. And instead you made noise and probably scared away wildlife by crawling under the log. Why not just step over it? Like, dead serious. And I like started to respond, and then I went like, no, I'm not even going to engage. I don't even know if they're tricking me or kidding me, or they're dead serious. Either way, it was
Here's
hilarious.
another good point too. So I visited your profile, right? And you went from 13.7 to 14.4. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Followers?
Yeah.
And I'm patting myself on the back here, because my response was like, hell yeah, good for him. As opposed to,
well, thank you.
As opposed to, oh man, like I wish I got 500. Wish my reel blew up. I wish, that whole story.
Yeah.
And in the mentality of, when Aaron wins, maybe the podcast wins. Right? Like maybe more people find out about that. Obviously that's like a secondary type thing, but primary just being like, oh, like good for him. His hard work made some people laugh, and people saw value in that, and it helped increase his numbers. I think that's important too to mention in this. It's like, be happy for other people. And then when you do something awesome, they'll be happy for you and they'll lift you up.
Yeah, it's Seth Romaine. He's like, hey, I think it was already doing well. But
was it 6,000?
Pretty early, and you 6,000 plays, and you went like, hey, I'm resharing this. He's like, don't let it get to your head. But no, he's like, I'm resharing this because it's funny and good. Period.
It was. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I mean,
for once.
I didn't mean to turn this about, for once. I didn't mean to turn this about me. That's not the point. The point is back to video, where it is fun. Yeah. You can create you can be funny. You can have like a witty moment and capitalize on it sometimes. And Mr. Beast said, you think the algorithm doesn't work? And he said, no, it's like your audience doesn't like it. So it's like, change algorithm to audience. And maybe things get old. Like if we watched Yellowstone and every episode was the same thing and the same plot, eventually you'd be like, I need a different show, right? Like if we keep posting the same photo, the same style, the same birds, the same this, the same that, people are going to look for other things. And video is an opportunity where I happen to, in this moment, I think, have like a semi clever thing. I don't think it had to go as crazy as it did. It could have just been like oh, this was pretty good for what I normally get in engagement. But when you have something that's funny or that has a meaning or has an inside story or has this thing, it does pay off. Like Ian just did it. That thing that he did was really funny. Like that was a very clever, quick, well put together reel. And it trumped mine by 100 million%. I mean, 5 million views. So,
right, but now he gets to include, he's a funny guy, so he gets to include comedy into his photography, which is to the point about being a hybrid creator, being a hybrid creator. And in that episode we did with Slater, on Spotify, right, you can put the polls. If you're listening on Spotify, scroll up while you're listening in this episode. You can drop, there's a Q&A section where you can leave feedback or thoughts on the episode. In fact, for this episode, write down some lessons from 2023, write down some goals or what you're trying to do for 2024 so that everybody can see it. And, we're going to do an episode where we go through all the Q&A submissions, whether they're questions or just like insightful topics. It shows your username, do that. There's also a poll section, which, I try to create a poll with a question for every episode. And on this topic, the one with Slater was, what aspect of becoming a hybrid creator interests you the most? And your options were more income, more creative flexibility, and learning new skills. And 44% of people said more creative flexibility interests them the most about becoming a hybrid creator, and 44% said learning new skills. 10% said more income streams. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, say it one more time. I just want to hear the stats again.
The question was, what aspect of becoming a hybrid creator interests you the most? And your options were more income, more creative flexibility, and learning new skills. And 44% said more creative flexibility, 44% said learning new skills, and only 11% said more income.
Yeah.
So it's about scratching that itch. It's about learning. It's about being able to express and not being in a box, which I feel, to come full circle on this point, is where I'm at with stills.
Yep. Growth, right?
Right.
And maybe growth for you is video. Maybe growth for someone else is, I want to edit way better my stills,
Yep.
And I think that's it, just there.
Yeah. Not poo-pooing photography,
No, I love it. I will always take photos for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, video is fun.
Well, what's going to be the first TPM artwork of the year?
Spencer Lee.
Nice.
That guy, he does landscapes that just make me want to go on vacation. And I think that's a compliment. It's a beautiful sunset picture, a nice pier going out into the ocean. Beautiful photo. He always does great work. Check out his Instagram, Spencer Lee. Is that it? Is it just Spencer Lee?
808.
808. Essentially 808. Yeah, great stuff. Congrats, Spencer. Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to everyone else. And yeah, find those goals, figure them out, figure out what you want to do, and make a plan, make a process, and get after it with grace on yourself.
For sure, man. And for people who are new to the show saying, what the hell is TPM artwork? Use the hashtag TPM, it stands for the photographer mindset, TPM artwork on your posts, and have the chance for us to talk about your photo. It's the episode artwork for Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and as you just saw, it's popped up in our YouTube box now. We have the option to do that as we're talking about it, and links to your page on all the episode descriptions. So a pretty cool thing if you want to have that done. And with that, man, it's been good talking to you. Anything else?
You too. No, Happy New Year. Glad to be here, and let's have a good 2024.
All right, sounds good. And if you liked what you heard, please give the show a rating and review. It's a good cost-free way and an effective way to support our show. Till next time.
Take care.